Hey y'all, it's Orlando. We just want to let you know that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast episode are those of the co-hosts and guests and not their sponsoring institutions. Now, let's start the show. Hello, Detroit and the world. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from the WDET studios, Detroit's NPR station. This episode is brought to you by the Ford Foundation, and we are a content partner to BridgeDetroit.com. I'm Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Givens-Davidson.
Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people on the east side of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. Today, we are excited to welcome Meredith Freeman, who serves as the Director of Impact Investing at the Fisher Foundation. Also joining us for the first time ever is Tosha Tabron, who serves as the Investment Officer for the Kresge Foundation. Meredith, welcome back to Authentically Detroit. Tasha, welcome to the podcast.
What's up? I know, how did this happen?
Tasha loves us. That's how it happened. That's how it happens. Because it's like, I can't believe, like I was telling Donna earlier, I'm like, I can't believe this is Tasha's first time on the podcast.
I know, right? That was a real shock to me.
A real shock. I mean, we're talking about, Meredith's an old pro, but we're talking about Tosha Tabron, an ECN corporate champion, one of the first investors when she was at JP Morgan Chase in our economic development work along Mack Avenue over there. Like, you know, Tasha, G.
I cannot wait to tell you what that investment has yielded. It's amazing. And, to have somebody take a chance on you like you did on us and say, I'm going to, support this vision really made all the difference in the world.
It was an easy one. It was a great vision. It still is a great vision.
Sure is. How y'all doing?
Sure is.
Good.
I ain't even there no more, but I know it is. Meredith, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here with Tasha because I have been in spaces with her when entrepreneurs turned off the music and said, stop, y'all, this is our girl. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her believing in us. And I witnessed that. So there you go, Tasha.
I did forget you saw that.
I saw that very recently. But you deserve every bit of that. Every bit of it.
Tasha, how are you?
I am wonderful and glad to be here with all of you. And again, this is a room full of greatness. So this is the way you're supposed to spend your vacation day.
I know. We love you for it.
Yours too.
Thank you.
Right.
This is also Orlando's vacation day.
Yeah.
So, so only two of us are supposed to be at work
No,
today.
this was vacation for me too.
Everybody.
So only me. Well,
Only
you know
Donna.
what? I have been off for so long with bereavement after bereavement. And so today is my first day back.
How did it go? How you doing?
Really well.
Yeah.
Really well. It was, I love ECN. I love the staff and the work that we're doing. And so, it's great to know that you can step away and grieve and then come back and you don't have to worry about watching your back or the work not being done and not moving forward. Everything was humming along and I came back and, joined conversations midstream. So it was a good day.
Yeah. Testament to your leadership.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like hiring leaders who are able to carry the vision in your absence and you come back and you could just get right back into the wave of things. Testament to the staff, your leadership and strategy. That's dope.
Oh, thank you.
Couldn't say better.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you should need more time, you should take it, right?
Actually being at work, I love working. I love what we do. I've had rest, but, we're taking care of the community. We are solving and working collaboratively on taking care of needs. And, as I was discussing with a staff person, if everybody loses their mother at some point, right? Unless their mothers lose them, which is, pretty tragic. And everybody loses siblings unless their siblings lose them. This is part of life. And so I'm not exceptional in that sense. And I just want to be part of a community of people who've just embraced so much loss. I mean, so many people have been lost over these past couple of years. I thought I was over the hump. Like nobody got COVID. Nobody died from COVID. But, as it turns out, there are excess deaths. And we have so many things that have happened in our community where people don't have access to quality medical care. People are shut in place and not doing the kinds of things to maintain their physical and mental health that we're seeing a lot of people just not. You look at some people, it's like, well, you're aged, right? And I'm not saying that to be mean. My sister and my mother really aged during the pandemic. It really had demonstrable impacts on them. You know, there was the whole year where we were afraid to see them. And then we did, and they were weaker. And, you know, everything was just sort of changed. My sister retired in the midst of a pandemic and retired from Blue Cross Blue Shield. And I want to put this out there just because it's important. She retired from Blue Cross Blue Shield in June of 2021, and didn't fill out all of her paperwork correctly. Therefore, she did not have health insurance. Her health insurance was supposed to resume July 1st, and she had a doctor's appointment July 6th. How can somebody work for Blue Cross Blue Shield for 20 years as a nurse case manager and die as a member of the uninsured is beyond me.
It's absolutely crazy.
We really need to do a better job closing healthcare gaps. And I kept telling her, you can go to the doctor anyway. You will qualify for some support. And she just was afraid to go and unwilling. So it's a consequence, and I think our whole community is living with that and living with grief. And so I tried to place my grief in the context of a community that's grieving and an enormous sense of loss.
Yeah, and you tell a great story, and want you to tell this story about the inspiration for the Wellness Hub at ECN. Yeah.
Okay, so my sister's a registered nurse. And she worked in nursing for many years, and her back kind of went out. And so she started working at Blue Cross Blue Shield as, a nurse case manager. Somewhere around 2006, somebody called in to Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they said, Linda Givens is an angel of mercy. She saved my life. And that actually went into a Blue Cross Blue Shield commercial. So she was so proud to be called Linda Givens is an angel of mercy. You hear it all over, the radio. So as she was set to retire, she was trying to figure out the next phase of nursing for her. And she says, Donna, I'm going to volunteer for East Side Community Network, and I'll come down a couple days a week and do health screenings. I'll be able to do something, like that. And so she retired in June of 2021 with the goal of, doing health screenings. And as she talked about it and she was talking about the need for it, I was like, we really do need to do health screenings. And everything that was done, and I was like, why don't we have a wellness hub? And she was the genesis of the idea that we could screen and protect people's health, that we could do a better job making sure people had insurance. And she talked about doing health education. So June 2021 rolls around, and she's sick. And my mother's weaker and weaker. And so we're trying to get my mother into some type of regular care because we can see she's not doing well. I didn't understand. Linda didn't have health insurance. I was so focused on trying to get my mother what she needed. But her back went out, and she was having, chronic pain and difficulty moving around. Again, I think the pandemic contributed to that. And so she never had an opportunity to volunteer. But what she did was create the genesis of an idea that we should be taking care of people's health on a regular basis. And one of the reasons why we had so many pandemic deaths is because people didn't know their health status. People say if you have a pre-existing condition, it's more dangerous for you. How many people did not know they had a pre-existing condition until they, were hospitalized? And so we want to make sure that people know that people have primary care, access to a primary care doctor who is theirs. You don't want to get a primary care doctor while in the hospital in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
That's right.
Because those folks don't know your history and aren't about to learn it and are not about to fall in love with you. So your primary care doctor is the person who you should be seeing. And in our community, it's huge that people don't have that. And so one of the roles, and this is our partnership with Henry Ford Health Systems and Trinity Health, is really to bridge that gap so that people do have primary care and that they, understand how to access non-emergency medical care.
Right.
It's huge. It's huge. Well, we're holding you up and holding you in space. We went on last week without you. We're glad that you are back. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
And we're glad that you're back to work and, doing the work of steadily building Detroit's East Side. All right, y'all, it's time for Hot Takes, where we run down some of the hottest headlines of the week, fresh from the press at Bridge Detroit. Malachi Barrett is reporting that the city council president floats preferred leaders of the reparations task force. I don't know if you all remember, but on the last election, I think it was the 2020 election, Detroiters voted in favor of establishing a reparations task force that will look and study some of the systemic impacts of racialized segregation, systemic and institutional policies that showed up in Black communities in a disparate way, to figure out how to repair, right? How to repay. And so this work has been going on. There has been a steering committee since, and now council today, which is Tuesday, has passed a resolution to go ahead and open up the task force for applications so that people can apply. Any Detroiter who's been here at least 6 years can apply. You don't need to be Black to apply. That was something surprising to read. But council members can also nominate themselves, and anybody can apply. But today, there was also some news around who the council president, Mary Sheffield, would want to assume leadership positions in the task force. And she told Bridge Detroit that she will likely appoint Planning Commission Chair Lauren Hood. Y'all know that name. She's been on here before. Detroit attorney and real estate developer Chase Cantrell. I think y'all know that name too.
We do.
Michigan Democratic Party Caucus Chair Keith Williams. I know we know that name. And Michigan Democratic Party Deputy Voter Protection Director Dorian Tyus as the executive committee members of the Reparations Task Force. Now, this is going to be interesting, especially when we figure out how many people will be seated and who will actually be seated. Even just from the executive committee or the potential executive committee that's named, I know all those folks, and all of those folks think, number one, love the city of Detroit, love Black people, but also have different strategies toward how to get to repair what reparations mean, right? And so it'll be interesting to see some of those conversations and how the conversations have been going. It will be a 13-member task force that will study how to make up for historic injustices endured by Detroit's Black population. So this is happening. It's not enshrined in an ordinance right now. It's just a resolution. And there is no conversation happening just yet around how, the initiatives that are recommended from this task force will be funded. Mary Sheffield's strategy is to go ahead and seat the task force first. Donna, what say you?
Where are the historians? We all have great ideas for what needs to be done. But I think that before you start talking about reparations, whose root word I think is repair, we have to do a good analysis of the harm that was done. And really give the community opportunities to give feedback. So you have two people who are basically politicians, and that is Andrew Tyus and Keith Williams. Dorian Tyus, Tyus and Keith Williams. And then you have a developer whom I love. And then you have somebody who is really focusing on Afro-urbanism, which I think is really important, right? But I think the historians like Jamon Jordan or Ken Coleman, who are able to document the specific harms in the past, are needed at the leadership of this initiative. At the leadership.
Well, the areas of expertise sought for representation cover 12 professions, including historian.
But I'm talking about the leadership.
Yeah.
And I'm saying if she's appointing these four people, and am I correct in saying these are the four people who are going to lead it?
Executive committee, yes.
Okay. So if you are the executive committee, it's not inclusion if you're not able to help shape it. I'm reading, I'm thinking back to the closure of I-375 and the way that has been framed. I want to read a quote.
Yeah.
It was Black residents and Black businesses that were hurt when Black Bottom was wiped out, and they were displaced for the construction of this freeway. Black businesses today should benefit from the enormous development opportunities this project will create. The equity of who participates will be just as important as how the new boulevard will ultimately look. I don't know that Black capitalism is a remedy for Black oppression. the people who were harmed, it's interesting that Black businesses should benefit and not the ancestors, or I mean the offspring, not the descendants. Thank you. The descendants of those people whose housing was displaced.
Yeah.
Not the descendants of those people who had their lives torn asunder in more than just an economic way. We're in a time right now where we acknowledge that there's a housing gap. We understand the role of a housing gap and the wealth gap. We understand that Black Bottom was majority Black because housing segregation forced us to live in these conditions, and that when you created these slum conditions and you decided, oh, wait a minute, Black people should live in slums, you just tore down the slum and pushed them into another slum that you created. And then in 1967, you had the rebellion, which is a direct offspring of that the disinvestment in our communities. And so it seems to me the narrow thought that businesses should benefit, and I'm not saying they shouldn't, but the idea that you're creating this high value real estate downtown and you're going to make certain people millionaires and put their names on things is problematic. The other thing I want to say real quickly is if you look at the what's happened in the Harmony Park and you look at the Car Center, the Car Center was a place in the old, was what's the name of the park right there? I'm sorry. Still in a little bit of fog. The
right across from La Casa? Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
There's a park right there.
Yeah.
And that park is supposed to celebrate Black history, and we were supposed to develop that into a Black development area. And the first thing they did was move the Car Center out of this building and force the Car Center somewhere to find real estate somewhere else in the city. If you were intent on preserving that for Black history, you would have kept the Car Center there. Now, I understand that the folks over the Michigan Chronicle and a few other Black businessmen and Dennis Archer Jr. benefited from that. But that's not reparations. And so for me, I just want to make sure the historians are there, that people who are really committed to understanding and sharing and discussing best practices are at the table.
Yeah. So there's 13 seats. The executive committee is not seated yet. The article does cite that they are going to be looking closely at the resurfacing of I-375. And, for the I-375 project, I share your concern because I think that from cement contractors to businesses to developers, there are a lot of people that are going to become wealthy from that. And I think we need to be having this conversation about who those people look like. And I know it's a cross-section project between the city and the state. What does contracting look like? Procurement? How are we reaching and thinking about, like you said, the descendants of folks who were displaced from Black Bottom, Paradise Valley? I mean, I think that's right in front of us in this bowl and it's happening.
But I do want to just clarify. Yeah. I think that Mary Sheffield said that Chase Cantrell, Lauren Hood, Keith Williams, and Dorian Tias will be executive committee members of the Reparations Task Force.
Right.
And so if there's going to be other executive committee members, are you saying that the other people also be on the executive committee?
I don't know.
Or they're just going to be on the task force?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yes. So I think it's really important to understand that.
We know the council president listens to this show. Council president, come on.
But she said she really wanted the task force to be driven by these individuals within our community who have the expertise to inform the council on the various recommendations and decisions. So there's no housing person there, or maybe I have to look that back up. I mean, housing justice person, because we have some people who work in the space of justice in the city of Detroit, and I don't see their names there. And that's not a slam on anybody whose name is listed there. I just think that if we're really looking at trying to achieve justice, add some names.
Yeah. What's the difference between the executive committee and the task force at large? What powers would the executive committee have that the task force would not have? Do we know?
I mean, executive committees usually have the most power. I don't know exactly how those powers get meted out, but usually an executive committee is the committee that drives decision-making, sets the agenda, makes a lot of hiring decisions and the like. And so for me, again, I think it's important who sits there and how representation is done. We have the Detroit Justice Center, for example. We have so many people who are working.
Amanda Alexander.
Exactly, Amanda Alexander. You have so many people working in areas of justice. Mm-hmm. It seems to me to have an inclusive process that looks at the economic impact and the political impact, but also at the justice impact of some of the past harms.
Yeah, it feels like some of this work has been done in the dark. Well, we we will be paying attention to what happens there. But I think it's exciting. We're going to have a reparations task force in the city of Detroit, and I think that is super exciting.
Progress.
It is.
It
Definitely
is.
progress.
It's big.
All right, that wraps up Hot Takes. If you have pieces that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. Super excited that Meredith and Tosha are here today to talk about an op-ed that Meredith and Sarita Scott wrote, who is at the Kresge Foundation, wrote an opinion in Bridge Detroit entitled Mountains Move When Black Leadership Collaborates. And so I'm excited to talk about collaboration and the importance of a Black philanthropic strategy across the foundations here in the city. So Meredith, great job on the opinion. You and Sarita did an amazing job. Tell us what the impetus for writing the opinion was.
Well, obviously, the story really starts with the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network, led by Malik Yakini, but there's many, many people engaged and involved for more than a decade to bring this vision to reality. So, you know, it really starts with them. It really starts with the community. It really starts with all the work that they did. But I think that Sarita and I thought that we needed to write about this part of the story because folks need to know what happens when Black folks are in positions that we can make a difference internally because we're connected externally. And so we just wanted to tell that story. We wanted to tell the story about how we networked with one another, how, you know, Sarita she had just come to Kellogg, like a few months in. And she was just like, okay, we're going to fund this. We're going to make this happen. How are we going to do it? And she called the first meeting of the funders together. All of us have known Malik for a long time. And but she called the first meeting. It was like, okay, what are we going to do? Kellogg had been funding DBCFS for a long time. And it was an expensive project. I know Tosha will talk about that. But we called folks to the table. What are we going to do? What can you do at your organization? What can you do at yours? At Fisher, all I could do was program-related investment, which is an important piece of it, but I didn't have grant money, but it was still a piece that was needed. And so we cobbled it together. I won't even say cobbled it together because that sounds like it's scatterbrained. And it wasn't scattered. It was really like people were committed. It made sense because this was Black-led. It was in a community that needed this cooperative model of getting access to fresh, healthy food, right? And it was in the North End where, you know, they're fighting for their lives against folks who want to take over. It is. And so anyway, so I'll just say that Sarita and I were like, we got to tell this part of the story because it matters when Black folks are in positions connected internally and externally and can add to the story.
You and Sarita wrote something that struck me, and you said that this kind of collaboration amongst foundations in this way is rare. Yeah. Why is it so rare?
Yeah, a lot of different things. I mean, different foundations have different missions and priorities, grant impact areas, and so sometimes there just isn't alignment. And sometimes there isn't anyone who's really connected enough to be able to make the phone calls.
Well, I think that this is a really unique point in our history and possibly something unique about Detroit in this point in our history, right? That you have so many people who really know and love the Detroit community working in the space of philanthropy and whose commitment is really to use and leverage their roles to move the process forward. Tosha, is that your finding? I know when I met Tosha, I want to say this, I was in the North End, and for a brief period of time, she was at Vanguard. And so, you know, both of us have...
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Donna was my boss.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for a brief period. Yeah, so we do have history, but it was right in that neighborhood. And so there's a sentimental feeling of being there and seeing things moving there. But do you think that your connections to the city, and I know how strong they are, and being in philanthropy has sort of changed the moment that we're in Detroit from the past?
I have. So yes, in short, my longer answer would be it's just thinking about the navigators of capital and philanthropy over time, right? If you think about the spaces from the beginning of my career in '99 and what the banking landscape looked like, what the philanthropy landscape looked like, what the development of real estate looked like, you know, there was that authentically Black leadership in all of those spaces existed. And then you saw in 2008 when, we had this recession in this moment, and we saw so much talent leave the marketplace, and you saw the convergence of banks, and it got bigger and bigger, and you saw philanthropy, and it changed. You lost a lot of Black leaders that sat in place of power to move capital in different ways, which is the reason why I moved the way I did in my career, because I wanted to see Black leadership in real estate. I wanted to see Black leadership again. And I'm talking about in private development, right? And a lot of our real estate talent was gone.
She was gangster in how she moved in her career.
I don't know about that, but I just wanted to see that again, And so when Meredith talks about people being in positions of power and using those opportunities within philanthropy, Black leaders and women, Black men, saying, okay, we're going to step up and do this together. There's been examples of that, but it's not, it is rare to say, can we in philanthropy, put aside the things that, we have to do from an outcome perspective for our organizations and figure out how we're going to get past those metrics and really look at the bigger picture around health.
Right.
Outcomes, right? That's what we're talking about. Like what you talked about earlier, Donna, is like, how do we make sure that we have access to quality, equitable food in this North End neighborhood? This is an important thing that we're all going to stand behind, and we'll figure out the internal pieces within our organizations and Black leaders actually sitting in that space to do that, and then going internally and then figuring out the rest of it. That doesn't happen often, especially when you're talking about a $21 million project.
And not in Detroit, right?
Not in Detroit.
So I think, we had people in those spaces,
right,
but not collaborating in those spaces. There's a different mindset to some of the folks who are sitting at these philanthropic tables, and I have to say it's improved. And I don't know whether it's just because philanthropy is changing and we're learning from that period in the past where everything had to be outcome driven. And you had to prove that you could change the world in 2 years with $20,000. It's like
that's
it's crazy.
That's a big piece.
Because listen, Sarita's not here right now, but I pitched the Stoudemire to Sarita, and she came back and said, "I'm going to give you general operating support." I was like, my oh my, she gave me 3 years of general operating support and said, you use this as you need. I'm not tying it to a project. Come back to me for a project grant sometime in the future. And that's different thinking. Nobody, who else did that is Shamil at Kresge. We are part of the Kresge Climate Health Initiative, and we were applying, we had all these, things that we were going to do, and she changed it to general operating support.
Sure.
And we're seeing that with philanthropy in ways that we haven't in the past. Is it the people who are at the table, or is it the time that we're in, or a combination of both?
I think it's all of that. I think it's the appetite within to try to do something different. I think in the past, one of the barriers is honestly some foundations want attribution. They want attribution more than they want contribution. That's just
you guys
reality.
Talked a little bit about that in the op-ed, and tell us why this op-ed isn't a piece where Kellogg and Fisher Foundation is bragging, but really trying to provide, amplification and agency to a project that is absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it's not even just about Kellogg and Fisher. It really is about all the foundations. Yeah. We just kind of wrote it together. Yeah. But we worked cooperatively for a cooperative grocery store. Like that's the model that they're promoting, which flies in the face of capitalism when you talk about having Black members who are making decisions about this entity, not just the grocery store, the community center, the real estate, all of it. And, our contribution was to work cooperatively around supporting this project. So
let's name some of the players.
Okay.
And then I want to talk a little bit about the money, but Meredith, you were making a list like, okay, I got to make sure we shout out everybody. Yeah. Let's talk about the players.
I'll do the players and let the money lady talk about it. Because I follow her lead. But definitely Kevin Ryan from Ford Foundation, Nate Wallace from Knight. And I have to give shout out to Linda Jo Doctor, who was a program officer at the Kellogg Foundation, who started funding Detroit Black Community Food Security Network many years ago, like 15 years ago or more. Yeah. Wendy Lewis Jackson, Kresge had given grants well before the PRI was in McGregor Fund. We had Heidi on a couple of calls. So
And then Baba Malik Yakini on the ground.
And Sonia Mays
That
and
side,
Orrin and his team from Develop Detroit are the development partners with DBCFS, and so we followed their lead.
Yeah.
And it's a big project, big expensive project.
Yeah, so what the article cites that amongst all of those foundations and some of the ones that you didn't name, you guys have raised over $6 million. It's a high price tag, but for me, it's like, that's good. We could do
started
more.
with $6.
$6 million.
We started with 6
6
and leveraged more.
And leveraged
So how
more.
much more did you leverage?
How much did you leverage?
It's so that number is grown.
It's
And
grown.
What I would say, okay, so the project's at 21 million,
Right.
And so when you think about how much debt is actually like debt that will stay with the project over time, it's less than 25%, right? So the rest of that has been subsidies that have helped leverage up like New Markets tax credits, which will be forgiven over time. Like this project has had a lot of love, and what I remember saying is, in every seat I've sat in over my career, I've seen this project at Bank of America, at J.P. Morgan Chase, at Invest Detroit, and now at Kresge. That's how long
they've been at
Malik,
it a long time.
Yakini and his team and the community have been thinking and trying to figure out this project. What I remember, and it might have been smaller than this, but what I remember was this project was less than $10 million when I saw it some time ago. And we were contemplating, could this actually be a project that could take on like something complex like a New Markets tax credit transaction? It wasn't quite big enough, right? And so over time, this vision, the size of this project, and the scale of it, the people that have been involved in it, it's not 20. It's double the size of what I remember it being, a decade ago. So some of that is cost, but a lot of that has been because the vision continues to grow too.
Yeah. So I to put together a complex deal like that for something, and hats off to Malik Yakini. He is such an amazing leader, right? And for I'm on the east side of Detroit, but this feels like it's my win too. We're not in the north end, but people in Detroit will go to Whole Foods.
We going.
And if we go to Whole Foods, we're going here, right? It's on the Woodward bus line.
We going.
And he's not even in the north end. He's in northwest Detroit, bringing something to the north end that is really a centralized area to demonstrate a model of cooperative ownership, cooperative leadership. And so I'm really excited about this, to take something that sounds like, because I remember I saw the pictures, right? And I was like, oh, that's beautiful. And I'm really thinking, but it's too expensive to be built, because you don't really expect that to happen. And when I saw the news that he had paired with Sonia Mays, and then finding out that you guys, because I didn't know about your philanthropy behind this when I was first reading. I sort of read the city was putting money in and not you all. So this is a great story, and it needed to be told that you came together and did that. I have to be honest with you, as a nonprofit leader, you see that. Now my first thought is, ooh, I have some ideas.
That's absolutely right.
And if you've ever worked with
Donna
me, you know I have some ideas, right?
Yeah.
But I know a lot of us have these visions that are, and we're afraid to dream big, right? I remember when I was thinking,
because I'm like, this price tag is not compared to what we see in the kind of subsidy and philanthropic and corporate support that a lot of development projects around the city that are not Black get. This is.
But the difference is we can. But the difference is that, and maybe I'm mistaken by this doesn't look like it's going to be a huge money maker at first, does it? Or will it?
Grocery stores. The margins
are very, very slim.
Very, very slim.
This feels like it's the first time where you have sort of this mission-driven project of this size in a long time.
Yes.
You had what was it? The youth. Oh my God! The youth center across the street from there.
Youthville.
You had Youthville. Youthville had that kind of price tag, but maybe not as much philanthropy. Maybe not the business plan, and so you don't have sustainable investments at that level.
Yes, that is true. Development capital is very, very difficult to do for projects like this. And it's not typical for, again, going back to RARE, it's not typical for foundations to get into a development project, right? Because then you have to pick, because there's so many great visions in our community of what should be happening by our residents and by our community. So, but this project was so special because you think about the number of nonprofits that'll be served by this, right? The number of businesses that'll be served by it. The fact that we're talking about a cooperative model of food that hasn't happened in the city of Detroit. It hit all of like the special points for Kresge, right? I mean, all of the things that we do with internally. So it was one of those things where you just couldn't deny the fact that we're at the finish line. We've got to finish this out, right? I mean, this has been something that the community has continually supported and been behind, right? This wasn't something that's, okay, we got excited about it and it kind of fell aside. No, they've been at it for a decade, and they're letting us know this is what they want. They're putting their money behind it, they're putting their hearts behind it, and so we have to, as an organization, also put our money where our mouth is.
And it sounds more like, we're coming in as partners.
Absolutely.
And not like, here's what we need you to do and sort of tell you to do, like the tendency that philanthropy has.
We filled up the rear. We came in after.
Because if I know Malik is like, y'all gonna fall in line with what we've been doing and what this plan is, right?
Because Youthville was not from the ground up in the same way, right?
Yeah.
It was foundations saying, here's what the community needs, and that may have contributed to some of the challenges because there wasn't the model that was really rooted in the community. But my question is, it was a great article. Is this a one-off? And if not, are there opportunities for those of you in philanthropy who care about this to educate people who might have big ideas, what it takes to bring a big idea? Because you're not going to be able to fund many, right?
Right.
But people may want to know what's the secret sauce so that you can replicate, and this can be something more than a one-time thing.
You want to start?
I'll start. I mean, I do think it's patience because any type of real estate, we just know it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't. It's multi-layered. This capital stack was crazy in terms of like all the layers. And it takes a long time to get all those layers in place. And even though 21 million sounds like a lot, but not a lot, in a Black neighborhood, Black-led development, it's a lot because
slim margins, like you said.
Margins, because it doesn't attract the kind of investment or traditional investment, I'm using my air quotes here, that other developments would. And so I think, the first thing is patience and holding on to that vision, because one thing I can say about Malik and the community is like, this is what we want. And there were people who tried to get them to shift here, shift there, do this, do that. And they were like, no.
Well, I love that you used the word patience because I think a lot of projects like this, when we look at the capital stacks, and we're gonna unscramble some of these terms that we're using for our listeners, right? Pro formas, capital stacks, project-related investments, all of this is in our jargon, but it may not necessarily be accessible to the listeners. So can we begin to demystify how a project like this is financed? It's starting with the PRI, the project-related investment, and how that works. Does that money cost a lot of money, or is it low cost? Like, talk to us, Tosha, about the PRI.
Okay, I'll talk to you a little bit about that. So Fisher and Kresge put together a just under $3 million with patient capital. So patient meaning money that goes out a long time, right? So it sits with you. It's inexpensive. In the case of our PRI, very inexpensive, right? You think about interest rates now, 4 or 5%, 6, 7, 8%. We're talking about capital that is, just above zero.
Almost free.
Almost free capital. We're talking about almost free capital. And usually when you think about, the capital that goes in as equity, that money that goes in below where the bank gets paid. Everybody get paid first, and this is the last bit of money that gets paid back, right? That's where our money sits. That's usually the money that has the highest interest rate, right? That's the money that sits in the riskiest space, right? The riskiest, and again, I'm using air quotes. But so riskiest space means higher returns. We're actually in the inverted. That's what makes program-related investments and critical dollars and sought after, because it's in the space that gets paid last, and it's the one that gets the lowest yield of interest return. So it's a hard resource to secure.
Okay.
And not all foundations do PRIs either. There aren't, everybody doesn't do it because of that, just because of that.
Right.
So one of the things that strikes me is that they already had raised their own money. They had generated their own, SALT memberships and raised money through their own mechanisms. And then they brought a project that had demonstrated community support by way of community contributions and ownership to you. Does that make a difference as opposed to somebody who has an idea and maybe 3 people who support it?
It does, but I will say Meredith hit the nose at the right on the head. Is that there's not a lot of foundations that do this, and if you do, the staff is small, right? And so doing development projects are difficult for us, one on, one off, right? Because this was a 12-year put together deal. I mean, imagine a one-person staff trying to think about vetting a number of projects like that throughout the city. Because every single project, I don't really care if you are a billionaire or a millionaire, will tell you that getting projects done in the city of Detroit is very complicated and difficult. And then unless you're just going to put all your patient capital in over a long period of time and let it sit, it takes time to get through a project, and it takes a lot of capital to do it. So every project needs that kind of subsidy to help, or some type of something to get done in the city of Detroit. And so it's very difficult for us to actually do those one-off projects. What I will say is what we're good at doing is coming up with solutions that can help multiple organizations, right? And that's what we'll put a plug in for the equity fund that we just put in place. That is a solution. That BRA is a solution. Thinking about the number of development deals that need equity and patient money, that's low cost to get across that finish line, right? And this is what this is. It is a fund that is putting money in the hands of Black developers.
How large is the fund?
It's $11 million. We're hoping that this goes national and people recognize this program. We're getting a lot of calls about it because we want this to be a $100 million fund. We want this to be a $200 million fund. But we're going to demonstrate that it's needed here with the $11 million fund.
I mean, you ask any Black developer in the city, especially, a small scale neighborhood-based developer, their number one need is low-cost capital.
Low-cost capital.
Yeah.
Low-cost money.
Low-cost money. And for banks, for CDFIs, and for foundations to redefine. Let's talk about this. Can we talk about the current definition of risk and why it needs to be redefined? Tosha or Meredith, y'all, who wants to take on that? Because everybody's risk averse when it comes to skin folk and them doing, stuff in developments in the city and all of that. But I think we got to restructure what that means. But talk a little bit about risk, y'all.
Yeah, risk. I mean, so here's the thing I would say about the saying things about risk. There's so many levels of risk, but the one that gets applied is, to your point, is like to the entity itself. Like, this is risky. This development is risky. But when you pull that apart, we're talking about the market itself. They're talking about risk in the market of Detroit, right? And if there's any volatility in that, can we truly believe that Detroit can manifest better kind of returns for this type, for this, because we know that there's poverty here. We know that we know that markets have been disinvested over time. Do we actually believe that this one project can actually help reinsert, more investment in the marketplace? That's what that's what they really should be talking about. But what it sounds like when we talk about risk, when they say, oh, well, this is too risky, it seems like it's being put on the entity, right? It seems like it's being put on these on Black developers, and so that's one of the reasons why this fund hopefully will change some of that narrative, because this is not about, we're going to give the entity the capital that it needs to get the project across and the patience to move. So now we're going to prove that some of these other risk factors can be addressed, right?
It feels like we have some of the highest performing best sell stores in the area. So we have the best selling Foot Locker is in Detroit,
and
right?
On Warren and Connor.
Right? And you have Whole Foods is so profitable.
The Meyer
People
Rivertown
come over
is
Meyer
always
Rivertown.
crowded.
So we know
Always.
that these projects tend to, sometimes it feels as though the perception of risk is built on formulas that are misapplied in our community. And so can you talk about moving beyond the formulaic assessment of value to say, wait a minute, Detroiters are going to travel farther and do more for these businesses?
That's a great question.
So one of the things that I am proud that we're starting to have the conversation internally at Fisher around is, what is the risk of not investing in it, right? Instead of looking at the risk of investing. What's the risk if we don't do it?
That's
like,
a great way.
what's the risk to community? What's the risk to health and wellness? What's the risk to equity? and continuing inequity around some of these things. And so I think that that's something that we're trying to embrace, and we're trying to demonstrate the risk tolerance, a greater risk tolerance, by looking at it from the reverse. And I can say that, in some ways, we're demonstrating that, because we're the first in sometimes when, I'm not a boxing person, but they always talk about punching above your weight class or something like that. Mm-hmm. Like, we came in before Kresge did.
They
And you came into a neighborhood that's not Brightmoor.
It's not Brightmoor.
Is
but
that
it's
new? Are you guys looking outside of Brightmoor for things like this
and
now?
so the good thing about the impact investing at Fisher is I could be a little more opportunistic and offer some opportunities at the committee table that aren't Brightmoor, that are Detroit wide, that are going to impact just the important things that the things that are important to us: community economic development, health and wellness. And so this is one of those projects that we were able to offer that's not Brightmoor specific, but is good for the entire city.
Yes. And I'll add to that, and then you add data on top of that, right? So you started talking about Whole Foods, and you talked about the different, proof points that we have in the marketplace. Add some more data to that. Think about the work that JP Morgan did and Detroit Economic Growth Corporation did around leakage, right? Looking at where people are spending all of their dollars. Let's actually track where people are spending their money. And if we put the right type of businesses in the right neighborhoods where we see people are craving that, they're looking for this. I mean, you look at the Avenue of Fashions, right? I mean, you put the right type of businesses in the right neighborhoods where people are actually driving miles to have that service or that food for that or that good provided. Bring that into the neighborhoods, and it will do just fine here, right? That dollar will turn right here.
And that's the tie-in to you, right? Because in 2016, I believe, I took over at Eastside Community Network, and we were looking for an opportunity to get support for our work on Mack Avenue. We had this vision that there was a lot of leakage, and there's actually reports that there's a lot of leakage, retail leakage on the east side of Detroit, and also that there's a lot of opportunity on Mack, and also that Mack is a boundary between Detroit and several gross points.
Sure.
Depending on where you are in Mack.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to do a study that would analyze how we could strengthen Mack Avenue. And JP Morgan Chase, under your leadership, paid for that, right? And we were able to get a study completed. And we've had continuous JP Morgan Chase funding for this project since you gave us our seed funding. Every year it's like, okay, we're not sure we're going to fund you again, and then it's okay, we'll give you 2 more years. So we feel very blessed. Sometimes a little higher, a little bit lower. But we did our first study, and we took our findings, and we built this relationship with Grosse Pointe Park in Detroit. And this is at a time where everybody's arguing over Kercheval, but we're breaking bread on Mack, right? And Orlando is central to that planning process. I think the mayor of Grosse Pointe Park was the first person at our planning meeting at ECN.
He beat us at our
like,
meetings.
how did you get here first?
Yeah.
He was so excited. And then we found out that Grosse Pointe and Grosse Pointe, City of Grosse Pointe and Grosse Pointe Farms had completed a study trying to figure out how to activate Mack. And they came to us and said, hey, we want to be part of your planning process. So we expanded our borders to include those Grosse Pointe communities. They received funding from SIMCOG, which is the first time we received funding that brought these communities together.
Oh, wonderful. Mm-hmm.
And we have a planning study that now goes from we have 2 planning studies. Then the mayor of Grosse Pointe Park, Grosse Pointe, I got to get these cities.
Grosse Pointe
City went to Representative Joe Tate, and he says, hey, can you get us some money for a streetscape planning process? Mm-hmm. And so we ended up getting, $200,000 from the state for streetscape planning. We've received money from NEI. We've received money from the Wayne County Economic Development, rather. We've received money from the Ralph Wilson Fund for economic development to work in Grosse Pointe. We now have 3 staff working in redevelopment. We've been able to give out loans during the pandemic to help keep businesses open. Yeah. We gave out loans to clean up floodwater. And our businesses, during this pandemic, business activity has increased on Mack Avenue. And several of them are Black-owned businesses that are on both sides of the street. And it all started with you believing in our
You were
idea.
first in.
And this wasn't even $21 million. What this was you believing in a vision that we could leverage our strengths and come together. So we meet and we have this executive committee meeting. And then earlier this week, I believe, or late last week, when the budget was approved for the state, we got $600,000 towards streetscape investment after our streetscape planning process is over.
I'm not there no more.
I know,
what's
right?
up.
And so every time I look up, I might be even missing some funding. It's been very, very productive. We are working with business owners and helping them grow. It's really exciting. On Sunday, I went to Cornerstone Villages, and I had the best chicken and waffles I have had, period, hands down. So if you're looking for a good brunch and chicken and waffles, head over to Cornerstone Villages on Mac.
Writing it
Black
down.
owned. Thursday night, they've got a DJ. Friday, they've got an R&B. And every other Wednesday, they have blues. Okay. And this is a business that did not exist before we were there, and we helped support them. We're still helping to support them with their expansion goals. I think sometimes it takes a funder who believes that you can make change and who is willing to do just more than fund best practices and actually recognize best practices. You know the language. Right. You got to go and prove that somebody else did it, and you can do the exact same thing on the east side of Detroit, and these are our shared conditions. But that's not the kind of funder that you have been. You've been a person who invests in people's ideas. And I know that's what you've been doing, Meredith. And I think that's, again, speaks to your love of the community and the fact that you see an impact yourself. Would that be true?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
All of that.
Yeah, and it goes back, Donna. Thank you, Donna. That's where it's
very kind.
It was so important for me to remember that the reason I'm sitting in this seat is because I remember my mother talking about Detroit very differently than what I experienced it as a kid, right? And then as I remember her talking about like the vibrancy coming from the South, right? She came up here from the South, and she remembers seeing all these Black, leaders, and just like she was mesmerized when she moved up here from the South and what was happening in our city, and stayed. And she talked about this, but she couldn't take me to certain areas of the city to experience it the way, because it didn't exist the same way. So many things happened, as you know, in our history, as you pointed out in '67, all these things that changed. All of these Black businesses that were around, that were in these corridors. And I started to see this again, in my career. I started to see, this is what my mother talked about later on in the 99s when it was, Detroit was starting to have this really strong comeback. And then to see that, like kind of disappear again in 2008, and started to see all these Black businesses close, and we started seeing so much talent leave the city, and, like people, all of our real estate talents, and going to other places to develop, it was just heartbreaking, especially as a banker, it was heartbreaking to see, all these Black developers and all of our ecosystem kind of empty out. And then once you start to have this resurgence in the city, it wasn't Black developers.
Talk about it. Talk about it then.
Right? It wasn't the Black. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Now we have an opportunity when the foundation community is coming together and putting together like things like Strategic Neighborhood Fund and all these different initiatives that were, led by the foundation community, kind of putting these dollars together to make sure that we can actually rebuild an ecosystem that serves developers and serves the real estate community. I mean, this is the moment that I've been like looking for in my career. I'm getting all excited. I'm smiling on the you guys can't see me, because that's it was leadership and with people like Sarita and Meredith and Keona Cowan and now we have like Jason Tinsley that is a market leader at Chase, and you've got Jason Paulatier and Biden Elliott and all these folks that are now sitting in these spaces. And managing money and capital and kind of moving it strategically throughout our marketplace, that we can now see this resurgence in the real estate market with Black leadership and Black and brown leaders, women. You're seeing women, Black women moving on projects. I'm like excited about this space, but it is because we have navigators. We call them navigators, capital navigators that sit in these important spots within philanthropy, within the banking, and corporation, the banking circle that can help you figure out how to start to, move these major projects that we need to in the real estate market along.
And in a place like Detroit, 79% Black, when we have a new guard of Black philanthropic professionals across the sectors and foundations and corporations and in banking. And y'all are actually talking to each other and, talking strategy. And now we're seeing it, sort of show up for Black folks who have ideas to expand on those ideas and make good on them, or to learn lessons. Black people were not afforded the opportunity to learn lessons, and fail. Right?
Speak about that.
You know what I'm saying? It's like
and still learn. You
know what I mean? Like folks, other folks get to say, "Oh, well, we learned this. It didn't work." We don't get to. We got to doctor up a grant report to make it seem like a success. But this new guard of Black philanthropic professionals, sort of like, it gives me hope, especially that y'all are talking to each other. I think about Angelique Power as well, and how she has entered into this space, and how she talks about shepherding capital,
right.
Is, it's encouraging.
Right. I just think that, don't forget Darnell Adams, who has not been at the Gilbert Family Foundation for long. Mm-hmm. He sits on our executive committee at ECN. And so I think it was January. I was like, we're going to create this sustainable housing department, and we're going to pull our work for DTE, energy efficiency, together with our tax foreclosure prevention work. And we had a Rain Ready Homes program where we are installing backflow preventer valves in homes. Now, we've been doing this. The city's been doing this. The city, I think, has completed 4. We've completed 7. So we are beating the city at this, although they're going to do a couple thousand, I guess. But we have this housed in different departments, and we said, let's pull it all together. And so he said, okay, and he's looking at me, and he says, let's talk. And the next thing I know, they've pulled together this home repair fund. And they've leveraged, I think it's Green Healthy Homes and DTE and one other entity I can't think of, to come together and invest in home repair. So now those people who are having tax foreclosure prevention also have access to the DTE energy home repairs, which we've been doing, but then added on additional repairs. And it really does take people in those spaces. I'm seeing people trying to figure out how to move mountains. My question for you is, if I'm a business owner and you talk about capital stacks and you talk about capital navigators, where do I go to find out about all of these stacks and navigators? Because I'm trying to navigate the language myself. Where do you go? I looked at the alphabet soup that DG puts out, and it's like, I don't even know, if I'm a business owner, where do you start this journey? What do you recommend?
Or an aspiring business owner. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so if I'm a business owner, I'll start with, I'll plug charity and Kai, right? Because, I would think in the business and, an owner in a business space, that's a space where they're definitely, very versed, right? They know the city inside and out from their background, and then they actually, they talk to all of the ecosystem of like the capital ecosystem, and they're going to get you ready. And I also want to be careful about saying getting ready. So, businesses know their skill, they know their craft. It's about like figuring out all of the red tape, and then, being able to navigate those barriers, right? Yeah. That keep you from getting to the capital.
Because they're ready.
They're ready, right? They're ready.
Thank you for naming that.
Right? They know what the community needs and what's happening. It's about like, what's the other pieces that help them figure. It's the financial. It's about being financially ready for it, and how to get access to the money.
And some businesses are. Some businesses have to do their homework, right?
That's true.
You have businesses that are operating without a balance sheet. You have businesses that are operating, and those businesses struggle. And I know we've talked to Charity about that. When people had to apply for the PPP loans, they weren't necessarily financially ready, although their services may be great. All of the backroom stuff. And so I think that's the beauty of the Metro Detroit Black Business Alliance, is that they are working with businesses to get them ready, Black businesses in our community.
That's right.
It's a great plug. And it's also important, though, that people don't just come to these spaces and assume they're going to do all the work. It's still a lot of work on part of the businesses, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes. And most of the small business loan funds in the city have some kind of technical assistance capacity building arm that's connected to it. So, if, you bake pies, that's what you do. But, you got to know how much your pie costs. You're making what you write. And so there's all these other assistance, these things that are built into the loan funds to help them. BizLoan is one that we've invested in that works with multiple entities to provide this assistance to make sure that the business owners really are kind of have a fuller picture of what it entails to actually run their business.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I know so many business owners don't want to do that amount of work. And then they don't want to have to learn those skills. And that's one of the challenges we have. And I really, really give credit to our staff working with businesses and doing some hand-holding. That I know it seems
It's high
hard.
touch, yeah.
I know it's frustrating when you're saying, okay, we have to look at this, but you have to think differently. We've actually had a lot of success working with Errol Service, who's been working with a lot of business owners on the corridor. If you don't know
that's
him, Errol
amazing.
Services of McDonald's
Yeah.
fame has been getting business owners ready
That's
for
great.
loans, right?
Yeah, we hung out at Mackinac. Yeah, that's really great.
He's
yeah.
doing great work. So I think that's the hard part. And it's whether it's a nonprofit business or a for-profit business, this is not easy work. Malik Yakini did the work.
He did the work over a long period of
Over a long
time,
period of time.
and learned some things he didn't know he needed to know. Right?
That's
I
right.
mean, that we all get in those spaces where we're just like, wow, I didn't even know I needed to know this.
Right, bringing Develop Detroit in,
Yeah.
right, and Sonia
Yeah.
Mays and her expertise, and saying, okay, like this is the space I know very, very well, but Sonia is skilled at putting together complicated transactions, right, and so being able to know that expertise was needed to like get over the finish line is what's up.
Yeah, that's what's up. And what this project does for me is dispel, this scarcity mindset that there aren't, Detroit is. I go to other cities and we talk about all that's here in the city of Detroit, and Detroit is philanthropically rich.
It
and
is.
Other cities are like, dang, y'all got everybody. We got little, you know what I mean? And so I think that, there is room for more collaboration like this and more investment like this without us having to worry about the price tag. You know what I mean? Like I'm not the money's there. I'm not. You know what I'm saying? It's just
The money's there, but you got to do the work for the money.
Of
You gotta
course.
work
Yeah.
for the money.
Of course.
You got to make it easy for folks. So you said there's one person, there's two people in these rooms pulling together these investment
And we're not making the
portfolios.
final decision
And
either.
right.
Like,
so I'm hearing what you're saying. I
and,
think
and,
that
and hire some more people. It shouldn't just be two people. Y'all got
Right.
money to hire folks. Too.
Well, see, now that's a whole other thing that we've
I know
dealing with. in
we
this
talked
market.
about that before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a talent, Again,
Yeah.
that's something else that we got to talk about.
talent, and we're the Blacks in philanthropy in decision making roles, like total decision making roles.
Yeah.
Where are we in leadership and in governance? We need Black folks on the boards of these foundations. We need Black folks,
Absolutely.
as CEO, COO.
Can we talk about that? How are you all thinking about participatory grant making at every level, from the board to the C-suite to the programmatic officer who has to interface with the community?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what kind of foundation. The Fisher Foundation is a family foundation. Their board is still family members, but we've been able to add independent committee members. So they do have some grant making say because they sit on the grant making committees. It really just depends on the structure of the foundation. But there's still a long way to go for a lot of these entities to make sure that, it's not just the program officers or directors that are on the ground and connected. That's great. We need that. We need more of that. But then we still have to go back and we have to present it. We have to sell it. We have to, go back and, do the negotiating. And sometimes it's
tough.
it's more difficult than others. But, to have us throughout in terms of the decision making would make things a little bit
what does
easier.
the pipeline look like, right? Because it feels like there's people who are working on the community side, on the nonprofit side, and then there's people on the philanthropic side, but it doesn't feel like there's a lot of understanding of what a pipeline might be for somebody who's interested.
I love that question.
And navigating to that side. And
Yeah.
and the board side is just completely opaque. It's like,
Who y'all mentoring? And
Are we talking about talent? We're talking about talent, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, as I think about this, if I look at our organization, like the racial diversity that our organization has gone through and shifted through in the last, I'll say decade, 5 years now. I mean, like that pendulum has moved significant in the last 5 to 5. Adding equity as part of our, like one of our core values is new as of 2019. So like our organization internally does look a lot different than it did a decade ago, if you will. I won't say the percentage, but I know it's more than 30% where you see Black and brown individuals at inside of the organization in managing directing positions, like all the way through. And right, shout out to Wendy Lewis, and you think about all of the other. I know Raquel Hatter, and we got a number of managing directors that sit at in leadership roles within the organization, and that was not the case. Again, that's going back to this navigation. It changes when you have people in different positions of power, and now we've got folks on our board. Right, we've had one or two in the past. Now that number continues to increase of the number of people of color that sit on our board and women that sit on our boards.
Nice.
So. Let's keep that trend going. Keep that trend going and keep it in place. And I don't think that we're as an organization, we don't plan on backing down in that space from an equity perspective. So
it'll continue to grow.
Do y'all have time to build the bench? Like, one of the things I loved about when you were at Chase, Tosha, is that you brought Shannon Smith along with you. You know what I mean? Like, yes. that was an intentional investment that I saw that you made. What the bench look like?
I mean, I know I've tried my best. We've brought folks in. It's a small foundation, though, so the bench is a short one, for sure. But I've also tried to be a mentor through the Council of Michigan Foundations for other, young Black and Brown professionals who are either entering or want to enter. And just providing some guidance. I've had many mentors over the years.
Yes.
Love Donna Murray Brown still to this day.
To this day.
And forever and ever and ever. But, people like that who really lifted me up and looked out for me and just took care of me, right, in so many different ways. And so I just see myself being able to do that and being committed to doing that, whether someone wants to come into philanthropy or not. I mean.
But most people don't even know how to enter philanthropy. Yeah. It feels like something that many people...
It's
mystical.
Sure.
And some of the people, because I first met you, Meredith, a long time ago at LISC, right? Yeah. And so you were... LISC was much more embedded in the community than a lot of other things. So even though you were sort of on the program officer side, you were kind of embedded in the community program officer side.
Right.
And Tosha took a break from banking to actually do some business development work at Vanguard. And it wasn't long, but it was in the community, working with folks in the neighborhoods that gives you sort of that bird's eye view of what it's like to be there. You have people who may be coming out of college who are super smart entering into philanthropy, but they don't have their feet on the ground experience. It feels like getting people with their feet on the ground to those spaces is also important, and very few people navigate that jump.
Yeah, it wasn't I always knew I wanted to be in banking, but I don't know if I could say I would land in philanthropy in this role. I mean, I didn't navigate myself into philanthropy this way. It is one of the things that we probably take more calls, and I'm gonna put these words in Meredith's mouth. She probably takes more calls about people wanting to know what she does because she's a superstar, and she just gets a call, she gets an email. It is like I know she does,
respond.
and she doesn't think about it like this. Like she's getting an email from somebody, and they're like, "What do you do? I want to know." It's a college student, somebody, and she just
Let's go for coffee,
and she has coffee with them, and she doesn't think anything of it because she's not writing those numbers down. But I know she's done that a number of times because I've done it. And we'll continue to do it because it's a lot harder now to figure out where the talent will sit who wants to be in this space. In the past, going back to this, the banks convergence, we used to pump out credit analysts, right? People that the banks used to just pump out folks of talent. And then, the alternative banking world would poach and pull people from the banking sector into the community development world, and that would lead into roles like this. And the community, that's how I got involved, right? That's it was Urban Financial Services Coalition, and Black bankers, urban bankers, what it used to be called, that kind of helped me navigate where I wanted to be in my career. Now you have larger institutions that don't train people locally, right? And so it's harder to kind of find a Shannon Smith. It's harder to find folks who have that background in finance who want to work in Detroit and kind of figure out these complicated kind of subsidies, right, in the world that we live in, and kind of train to that. And so we take calls from people all the time that are kind of interested. You're interested? Okay, let's talk. Let's talk about your skill set. Let's talk about how we can.
So call these places, y'all.
Please call us.
Because it's more than just giving money away, right? You're not Santa Claus. You don't go to work just to give money away. There's like Kasha said, you're working on stuff that takes a long time.
But the other apparent connection that I see is this connection between community development and philanthropy. For folks who have been on the other side of philanthropy, actually stewarding the work and making sure that the capital that's given from grant making organizations is spent correctly and all. I think that's a obvious pipeline connection that needs to be codified, if you will, for lack of a better phrase.
I mean, we need content experts in all areas of grant making. Arts, we need artists to serve in foundations. We do. We need folks who know these businesses, who know education, who know the arts, who know impact investing, who know communities. I mean, to me, the best skilled grant makers are the ones, to your point, Donna, who have been there and have brought that experience into the foundation with them.
Yeah, so it'd be really interesting. We have pipelines into community development as a focus that we are working on in our community. We have a lot of people retiring as executive directors. It's like, Lord, who's going to replace them? What is the pipeline of talent? And are we really doing a good enough job preparing people to lead organizations, not just do work, right? And I know that U of D Mercy has a master's in community development. Is there masters in philanthropy anywhere? And does there need to be that?
There's the Lilly School of Philanthropy at IUPUI in Indiana, and then the Johnson Center at the Grand Valley State.
Nice.
So, there are some places to go.
But do we need more? And more locally? Does it make sense for, say, the Ross Business School or the School of Public Administration at U of M, for example, to create or carve out a niche for philanthropy?
Come on, Professor Tosha. Professor Meredith.
I know, I've taught nonprofit management courses as an adjunct in the past.
Nice.
Yeah, but it was kind of more general management, right? And not necessarily around philanthropy. But I do think that impact investing and social investing is showing up a little bit more in business schools for sure, because for impact investing, I think the best impact investors are not the Wall Street folks. Right. Sorry to all my not sorry, but I feel like you can learn finance. You can't learn working in community. You can't. I mean, you know what I mean? Like that seems like it's in you. It's part of you, and you bring that together.
As a mother of a son who graduated from Ross and didn't have any classes on impact investing, I'm just saying that it would have been nice to have something there, because I know when he graduated that he was like, I don't want to work in just making people money. And so there was no awareness of that. I'm wondering if there could be some thought, if you're really looking at the bench, it's got to be people who can graduate with some type of credential, I think, from more than just 2 or 3 schools in the Midwest.
Yeah,
just a thought.
Yeah, for sure. It's trickling in slowly.
It's starting to happen.
Bit.
Well, we got to have y'all back. This was a whole lot of fun, and I think the city can be encouraged around this new guard of Black professionals across sectors who are shepherding capital into neighborhoods. This is monumental. Shout out to Malik Yakini and the work that he has been doing for years, manifesting into something like this. This is amazing, and we coming. We coming. We drive into it.
And shout out to all the farmers.
And the farmer,
right? Because we have such a robust farm movement Black farmers movement in the city of Detroit. They're going to benefit. Yes. I'm really excited on behalf of the farmers.
Yeah, and can I just say, so everyone I think is pretty aware of the history of the Cass Corridor Food Co-op, but during part of my discovery and doing research around this, I actually found out my grandfather was the president of the Sojourner Food Co-op that was on the east side in Conant Gardens on Conant Avenue in 1944.
Wow.
On a picture of opening day, found a picture of the sales flyer where 2 pounds of collard greens was like 29 cents, 1944. So this is part of our history here. This is part of where we come from. Cooperation is not... South. But it's not a new thing. It's not a new thing.
It's intrinsic in who we are.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Absolutely who we are.
I would love to see those pictures.
I put them on Facebook. I'll put them on there again.
Okay.
I love it.
All right, y'all. If you have topics that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. It is time for shout-outs. Donna, you have any shout-outs?
No, I'm just going to shout out the 2 women here. Tosha and Meredith, and also you guys are just really awesome, and I want to honor you for the work that you do, because it gives me hope. I've been doing this work for a minute, and it's it has not always been possible to see people in philanthropy, and not just you, but also Kevin Ryan and also, Nathaniel Wallace and, of course, Sarita champion the vision of people who are doing the work in the field. So thank you for your work in that field. And I also want to shout out Orlando Bailey. I don't know if anybody saw the Secret Society for Twisted Storytellers. It was Lion King. It was on June 17th.
Don't start me the line.
June 18th. It was June 18th. It was the day before. I had just come back in town. It was June 18th. Orlando was amazing. And I know everybody knows Orlando is amazing. And so I was like, let me put this on TV.
Nice.
And I broadcast it to my TV, and Kevin and I were watching it, and I was just like almost in tears. It was so good. So
I missed it.
I missed it being in person because I had just come back in town. I was just trying to, get over jet lag. But Orlando, that was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Tasha, Meredith, any shout outs?
I think just my Black philanthropy peers.
Yes.
And you know what? We work together, but they're just people you want to be with. Like, you want to hang out with Tosh and Kevin and Nate and Sarita and then my people, just to, have a cocktail with and some laughs. I mean, they're just good folks. So shout out to all of them just for who you are.
Kevin was the first money in for Authentically Detroit.
Sure was.
First money in.
All right now.
I want to shout out, I saw so many Black young professionals celebrating over the last week because they were named to the Michigan Chronicles.
There you
40
go.
under 40.
There you go.
And
that was where I was
it
gonna go.
is really, really cool to see us honor us, right? And so I think Darnell was in that class, Donna.
He was.
And so
And Shannon was in.
Shannon was in
Shannon
that
was in
class.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jason Hetton and
Yes.
Nicole. Oh my God, I can't remember Nicole's last name, from Detroit Hives.
Yes.
Is in that class. So I messed up. I started naming names. I'm sorry. I am sorry. Daniel Jones from Good Boy. Everybody. So I saw so many folks celebrating, and it's really, really dope for folks to receive their flowers and that kind of honor from the Michigan Chronicle. It makes so many people happy, and it was really fun to see. So congratulations to all of the 40 under 40 honorees.
Darnell has such a distinctive walk. And I didn't realize that until I saw a video. Geraldine Gaines was recognized, and I know her mom and dad. And I'm looking, and I'm like, that's Geraldine. I wonder what she's been. And then Darnell walked out, and I was like, oh, 40 under 40.
Yeah. 40 under 40. So shout out to the Chronicle for honoring Black talent and making it special, making everybody feel special. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Authentically Detroit. We thank you for listening. We want you to catch the wave.